Family, I know you can't stand people sometimes. I can't stand people sometimes. There's a lot of times you might have issues with your wife, your husband, your kids, your family members. A lot of people get on your nerves. You don't want to take advice. You don't have issues with I'm saying I'm sorry. A lot of people don't even look in the mirror and say, you know what, I need to change. There's something wrong with me. But we do focus on and say, you know what? We play that movie. It becomes like a sitcom in our head. What my wife said last night, how my kids are acting towards me, not showing appreciation. Your family members that did you wrong. It could be your mother and father. Only thing I'm describing to you is pride. We all deal with it. Some people have gotten a hold of it, and other people, it's just dominating their life. Now, pride can be boisterous or it can be silent. And the silent one is very dangerous. Boisterous pride is somebody who's arrogant. They're the loudest in the room. They think they're the smartest person in the room. They're very toxic sometimes. But then you have the silent pride. I don't need nobody help. I'm not going to say sorry until they say sorry to me first. And then that person also say, this is just the way I am. That person has lost hope. I have been there. I remember on several occasions with my own boys, they would do something, I would pretend they wasn't even there because I felt that I was wrong. Now, I'm not gonna lie, and sometimes this is what pride does. What they did was probably something small, but we took that thing, or in my case, I took it and I completely exaggerated what happened. And I tried to justify in myself why I'm not speaking to them. Can you imagine your own family? Now, it's crazy when you look back in retrospect and how you used to act. You're just like, man, I was foolish. But hey, believe me, when I was going through it, I wasn't thinking rationally. I was very deep into my emotions. But I took steps just to overcome my prideful nature. And hopefully this is something that you guys can implement to get over this thing. One, I had to recognize I have a problem and I need to change. Because when you look at Proverbs 16:18, it says pride goes before destruction. Too many times in my life, I came to the precipice of losing my family, destroying my marriage, messing up my relationship with my kids, affecting my career, and a lot of different areas. It affecting my worship with God, my relationship in doing His work, or my relationship with my fellow Christians at church, because I have created a little box for myself, a small world that I put myself in, and I made sure nobody else can get in there with me. I completely isolated myself because I was living a victim mentality, always thinking it was other people who was the problem. Now, I can't control how other people act towards me, but one thing I can control is how I act towards people. If you look at King Saul and David, on the way back from a campaign, the people yelled, Saul killed 1,000, but David killed 10,000. So what happened? Saul wanted to kill David because of jealousy and pride. Then David turned around when he was king. He wanted Bathsheba, but Uriah was one of his trusted, loyal servants, a soldier in his army. He was a righteous man. So to try to cover it up, and that's what pride does a lot of time. Prideful people will try to cover up their character because they don't want people to see what they did or who they really are. So to try to cover it up, he tried to encourage Uriah to sleep with Bathsheba because she was pregnant. But he said, no, how can I and my fellow Israelites are still at war? So what did David do? He sent them out there and told the captain, send Uriah to the front line where the battle is fiercest and leave him there to die. But that's what pride would do. You will go above and beyond to conceal or to hide that thing that you did. When you look at Cain and Abel, Cain killed his brother. Why? Because God preferred his offering than his. And because of his anger and because of pride, he killed his brother. You can look all throughout the Bible. They even killed Jesus. Why? Because he said what? I'm the Son of Man. He was teaching the people that God was looking at a person's heart to convert the heart to him. Did he not say, now he demands that all those who come to him must worship him in spirit and in truth? It's none of this outside lip service that he's interested in. He wants somebody with a pure heart, and that's the thing he loved about David. He said, David is a man after my own heart, because one thing about David that was different than Saul, he knew when he was wrong. Every time he did something wrong, he knew when he was wrong. He did not reflect. He did not point fingers at other people. He took accountability. Adam in the garden, when Adam and Eve partook of the fruit, when God came down, he said, Adam, where art thou? So instead of Adam taking accountability for what he did, his pride deflected and say, it's the woman that you gave me. But that's what happens a lot of times when people who are prideful, they don't take accountability for the things that they did. So that comes back to me. When I finally decide to let go of fear and let go of hate and become humble in the sight of God, then I had the right mindset that God can use to finally transform my life. I had to realize I needed help. I needed to change. I had to go a different direction because that circle that I was in, it was destroying my life. And a lot of you guys might find yourself in that same boat. But guess what? You can change. God promised that if we keep our minds on him, he will keep us at peace. If you look at Isaiah 26:3. And an example of that is when Peter stepped outside of the boat and walked on water. Now, when Peter was looking at Jesus, he was fine in the midst of the storm. But soon as he took his eyes off of Jesus and paid attention to the storm, he started to sink. But here's something that's interesting. And I never thought about this until recently. When Peter started to sink, he called out to God. But think about it. Jesus wasn't the only one who was there. The other disciples was in the boat. Sometimes you have to know who to call out to. So when Peter started to sink, he called the right person and Jesus went down and he caught him. Jesus didn't ridicule him. But if Peter would have called out to the apostles in the boat, they were not close enough to him to save him. Sometimes in life, you have to watch or be careful of the people you go to for help because they're not in a position really to help you. And every advice from people is not the right advice that you need. And that's one thing I had to stop. It could even be people in your church. The first thing you need to do is pray to God that he will lead you to the right people. It might be some random person on the train and they say something and that's exactly the thing that you need to hear. You have to allow God to guide you to the people that you need to speak to, and he will never fail you. It might be somebody in your family. It might be somebody that you couldn't stand and you had them locked in your mental prison and you didn't want to forgive. But as soon as you forgave that person, guess what? They gave you the information you was always looking for and you didn't even realize it. But you would have never be able to receive that blessing if you would have held on to that animosity towards that person. So how do we get over pride? You have to first realize you have a problem. Say, I'm sorry. I need to change. Then we constantly have to plug into God's word. Think about it. When you have a phone, we charge this thing up all the time. Sometimes a few times throughout the day, because we know how important of a utility this is in our daily lives. But something more important than your phone you have, and we neglect. What about taking God's word and making sure that you plugged into this daily? This is the blueprint, the roadmap, the remedy to all of your problems. But you have to trust that God can step into your situation and take care of it. But a lot of times we only plug in once a week, once a month, once a year. So how would you be able to stand strong spiritually if you're only doing something once in a while? We wouldn't do it with anything else. A lot of things in our life we do daily, the things that we like to do. But the most important thing in our life that has implications while we're living and in our afterlife, we neglect this. It's nobody's business. We think because we go to church just on Sunday that we're going to be all right. But you would never charge your phone once a week. You would never eat once a week or do a lot of things that's critical to your daily life once a week. There's no other way to overcome issues in life. If it's pride, if it's anger, if it's anxiety, if it's depression, if it's whatever struggles that you're dealing with, because it's not within man to direct his own steps, according to Jeremiah 10:23. We have to put all of it, everything. Philippians 4:16, right? Be anxious for nothing, but through all things, through prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, that's what we need. It will keep our heart where you're not sitting here stressing. Now, guys, let me put this disclaimer out there. This is something that's not easy. I'm not going to pretend it's going to happen tomorrow. You have never seen somebody plant a seed and then the next day it's fully bloomed. It does take time. But as long as you are consistent and disciplined, you will get there. But when you quit, that's when you decide that I'd rather be this person who is destroying, who is toxic, who is just bleeding me dry of happiness. I'm an example, and many other people are examples, that you can overcome pride, negative thoughts, constantly playing sitcoms in your head of all the people, what they did, what they said, a lot of different things. All the no's you got in life, all the rejections, people that you don't even realize they hurt you. You got them all trapped in your own mental mind. It's time to let that stuff go. You can do it. Believe me, I was struggling with fear for a long time. And that's another thing that pride will do. Not for everyone, but in my case, I was a victim of this. Freaking fear. It has stopped me from doing a lot of different things. Why? Because I thought what other people might say, how other people might view me. So freaking what? When you finally get to that point when you say so freaking what, guess what? I'm not perfect, they're not perfect. We all dealing with stuff. But why allow what other people might say or will say affect you? It's just words. We're carrying around a book bag with guilt, anxiety, trauma. And the funny part about it, we pick it up daily. Nobody's forcing us to put it on. Nobody's forcing us to carry that thing. Let it go. Believe me, you will have a more joyous and productive life. You be so focused and locked in on more important things instead of people that don't matter to you, or the things that don't, what they say don't really matter. It doesn't make a difference. Because if God is for you, who can be against you? Who cares what people say when they say no? They're not the final say. It might not be that way when they said no. That might not be the direction. God is just telling you that's not the direction. But when you finally get your yes, you're not going to take that personal. Remember when Joseph, he was imprisoned by his brothers. He could have held that against them. But what happened when he finally seen his brothers years later when he became second in command in Egypt? He didn't say, because of y'all, I'm here. He said, no, God sent me. And why did God send him to Egypt that way? Because along the way to prison, to Potiphar's house, to prison, and all the things that he went through, God was setting things up for him to become second in command. You know why? Because he gave him a dream, and he said in his dream, all his family members would be bowing down to him. Sometimes we don't control how the road that God leads us on to get to our destination. But through it, he will build us. And this is something off topic, but I think this is very important. When you're going through things in life, don't focus always on the problem. Always ask yourself, God, if you allow me to go through this, help me to understand what I need to see or what I need to learn while I'm going through this storm. Because it's probably something about your character or something that you need to learn that is critical for where he's trying to take you. So let that thing go. Put aside pride, accept humility, accept love, accept forgiveness. But this thing right here is the thing that brings it all together. You have to plug into this daily. Because if you don't plug into this, we have a tendency to plug into something else, and you don't want all that effort and time that you spent building yourself back up, then you allow yourself to be poisoned because you're plugging back into the old things that you're trying to run away from. Anyway, until the next time, reset.